Hello everyone, and welcome back to Empire Pro. Or if you're new here, thank you for clicking on this video. Today I want to discuss the curious case of Japanese pro wrestler Kota Ibushi. Ibushi rose to prominence in DDT Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling over the course of the last decade, but his career has been plagued with injuries, backstage politics and illness. So let's take a look at the fascinating and bizarre story of the Golden Star, Kota Ibushi. Kota Ibushi, trained by MIKAMI and Dragongate legend Shuji Kondo, began his promising pro wrestling career on July 1st, 2004, making his debut with DDT, Dramatic Dream Team, at their DDT Audience 2004 show, in a losing effort to KUDO in a little under 6 minutes. Right from the very beginning of his career, the signs of a potential star in the making were there for all to see. Ibushi was acrobatic, athletic, fearless, and used a variety of styles in his matches early on in his career. Ibushi would soar to the top of the card over the next few years and spent the next half of a decade working pretty much exclusively for DDT, giving back to the promotion that gave him the start in the business. Ibushi spent a total of 11 years with DDT, winning many championships, including their top prizes, the KOD Tag Team Championships 5 times, and the KOD Openweight Championship, the main singles title in DDT, 3 times over. It was also in DDT where Ibushi would become friends with future New Japan and AEW star Kenny Omega. Ibushi and Omega would start out as rivals, as the Canadian import became a regular fixture in DDT, using the similar athletic and innovative style that gained Ibushi such a cult following. But it was short-lived, with the two becoming great friends and winning the KOD Tag Team titles twice as the Golden Lovers. In 2009, Ibushi started working for New Japan Pro Wrestling and eventually signed with the top Japanese promotion in 2013. In New Japan, Ibushi was a former never openweight champion, 3-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight champion, and a 1-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team champion. Ibushi then resigned from both DDT and New Japan in February of 2016, going solo and performed in several different promotions globally as a freelancer, including both DDT and New Japan, as well as WWE, where Ibushi would capture the eye of casual fans and cement his name as one of the top cruiserweights in the mid-2010s. From June 23rd to September 14th of 2016, WWE held a Cruiserweight tournament, of which the majority of the 32 competitors were from outside of the WWE. This was somewhat of an unprecedented moment in the time for WWE, as the mention of any other promotion, let alone indie promotions, was often something WWE avoided like the plague, believing that the mere mention of a rival company such as New Japan or TNA or an independent promotion would draw eyes on the opposition's product and away from their own. The tournament was single elimination, with the winner being crowned the revamped WWE Cruiserweight Champion, and featured many big names across the independent wrestling scene. This included the likes of TJ Perkins, Zack Sabre Jr., Brian Kendrick, and of course, Kota Ibushi. Ibushi would reach the semi-final stage of the tournament and was arguably the standout in the competition, having incredible matches with the likes of Cedric Alexander and eventual winner TJ Perkins. This was Kota Ibushi's opportunity to show Western audiences that he was indeed not only one of the best cruiserweight wrestlers in the world, but also one of the best wrestlers in the world, period. Ibushi would then have a short run at NXT shortly after the tournament, before returning to New Japan Pro Wrestling, with Pro Wrestling Torch reporting that Ibushi was offered a contract with WWE, however, Ibushi denied ever signing anything. It's also believed to this day that Ibushi was potentially a favourite to win the tournament. However, WWE was looking to put the title on a regular face for fans of the product, meaning that the eventual winner TJ Perkins was much more likely to carry on the torch of the Cruiserweight division, having signed a long-term contract with the organisation. On October 16, 2016, Ibushi returned to New Japan Pro Wrestling, taking part in a dark match prior to the King of Pro Wrestling event. Ibushi wrestled at the match as the masked character Tiger Mask W, based on the anime series of the same name, defeating Red Death Mask, portrayed by future New Japan and now AEW star Juice Robinson. The following day, New Japan announced that Tiger Mask W would return to the promotion in January of 2017 for their annual show on January 4th, Wrestle Kingdom, in which he defeated Tiger the Dark, portrayed by former ROH, New Japan and NXT talent ACH, at Wrestle Kingdom 11, arguably one of New Japan's greatest cards to date. Ibushi hadn't wrestled as himself since the WWE Cruiserweight Classic, seemingly being lost and looking for some kind of identity. But in the summer of 2017, that would all change, in the form of his golden lover, Kenny Omega. Finally, after almost 8 months, Kota Ibushi would be returning to the ring as his namesake, being announced as a competitor for New Japan's annual 20-man, 2-block tournament to crown a challenger to the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, the G1 Climax. NJPW billed this as Ibushi's return to the company after 2.5 years, not acknowledging his stint as Tiger Mask W. The tournament had its ups and downs for Ibushi, with the running theme being that whilst Ibushi was still a top-tier star, his supposed ring rust was keeping him from hanging with the top heavyweights in the company, such as Kazuchika Okada, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and of course, Bullet Club's supposed leader, Kenny Omega. In Ibushi's absence for the many months prior, his best friend Kenny Omega had stepped up in a major way within the New Japan ranks, graduating from a junior heavyweight to the heavyweight picture, even going on to main event Wrestle Kingdom 11 in a losing effort to IWGP Heavyweight Champion at the time, the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. The cleaner moniker of Omega had been shed, with his new persona being the Best Bout Machine, known for putting on 5-star classics week in and week out. Another wrinkle to this story is that around the same time in 2016, Cody Rhodes had been released from his WWE contract in a shocking move, and had joined ROH and New Japan shortly thereafter, quickly aligning himself with the Bullet Club. Whilst Kenny Omega was head of house amongst New Japan's Bullet Club, Cody was taking charge as the self-proclaimed leader over in the West, at Ring of Honor. With tensions rising amongst the two leaders, a civil war was about to erupt, with the boiling point being at Wrestle Kingdom and New Year's Dash on January 4th and 5th respectively. Ibushi would defeat the recently dethroned ROH World Champion Cody at Wrestle Kingdom 12 on January 4th, 2018. The following night at New Year's Dash, Ibushi was attacked by Cody after losing a match to the Bullet Club, but leader Kenny Omega stopped him from doing so. At the New Beginning in Sapporo event in late January, Ibushi would return the favour, saving Omega, who was involved in an altercation with other Bullet Club members Cody and Hangman Page. In doing so, he reunited the Golden Lovers. For the first time since 2014, the tag team were one again, with Omega essentially distancing himself from a Bullet Club that he no longer recognized. On Night 2 of Honor Rising on February the 24th, 2018, an inter-promotional super show involving ROH at New Japan, the Golden Lovers won their return match as a tag team against Cody and Marty Scurll. After the match, Ibushi and Omega were confronted by the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, who were a staple of Bullet Club from an early stage and were former close friends with Omega, to challenge the Golden Lovers to a tag team match at New Japan's Strong Style Evolved show on March 25th. At the event, the Golden Lovers defeated the Young Bucks, And although Ibushi would later become a regular in Bullet Club tag team matches during the Road to Wrestling Dontaku tour in April and May of 2018, he was not considered an official member of the faction. On June 9th at Dominion in Osaka-jo Hall, Ibushi was in Omega's corner as he defeated Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. After the match, Ibushi, Omega and the Young Bucks all embraced in the ring and formed a new subgroup called the Golden Elite, beginning to distance themselves from the Bullet Club moniker. Omega and Ibushi would remain friends and continue teaming as part of the Golden Elite. And behind the scenes, Omega, Hangman Adam Page, the Young Bucks and Cody would all grow closer and went all in, pun intended, on a new venture, All Elite Wrestling. Despite being part of All In a showcase event ran by the Golden Elite, with funding from ROH and New Japan, Ibushi wouldn't initially be signed to the company that was founded on the backs of the success of All In, AEW. Billionaire owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham Football Club and lifelong wrestling fan Tony Khan would back the Golden Elite to fund All Elite Wrestling, with all members, barring Marty Scurll, joining the company as executive vice presidents and full-time roster members. Meanwhile, Ibushi returned to Japan to wrestle for New Japan, and in February announced he wasn't leaving and had signed a 2.5-year exclusive contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Ibushi would go on to beat the IWGP Intercontinental Champion at the time, Tetsuya Naito, in a non-title New Japan Cup match, earning him a match with Naito for the title at April's 2019 G1 Supercard, a joint promotional event between ROH and New Japan, in which he would successfully capture the IWGP Intercontinental title from Naito for the first time in his career. After losing the title back to Naito, Ibushi set his sights on the G1 Climax. Now seen as more of a veteran, Ibushi would go on to win his A Block bracket before defeating Jay White, the winner of B Block, in the final, to earn a shot at the IWGP World Championship in the main event of the Wrestle Kingdom 14 on January 4th, 2020. This made Ibushi the first wrestler to win the G1 Climax, the New Japan Cup, and the Best of the Super Juniors, the three main single tournaments in New Japan, in their career. He received his G1 Climax title shot on the night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom 14, where he was defeated by Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, before losing on the following night to Jay White in a singles match. The following year, Ibushi would do the unthinkable, winning back-to-back G1s to once again main event Wrestle Kingdom. This time he successfully defeated Tetsuya Naito in the main event of the Tokyo Dome show to win the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championships, becoming only the third man to win the IWGP Heavyweight and Junior Heavyweight Championships in history, the first two being Nobuhiko Takada and former Golden Lovers tag team partner Kenny Omega. Ibushi then went on to successfully defend both titles again on the following night against Jay White. Ibushi would later declare his intentions to win and unify the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Championships. After several months of Ibushi claiming that he wanted to unify the belts, New Japan announced on March 1st of 2021 that the championships would officially be unified into the new IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at New Japan's 49th anniversary show on March 4th, with the winner of Ibushi's match against El Desperado for the heavyweight and intercontinental titles being crowned the inaugural champion. At the event, Ibushi won the match, making him the final IWGP Heavyweight Champion, the final IWGP Intercontinental Champion, and the inaugural IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. On April 4th at Sakura Genesis, Ibushi dropped the championship to 2021 New Japan Cup winner Will Ospreay in his first defense, ending his reign after only 31 days as champion. Ibushi would begin his quest to get back the top prize in New Japan and go on to make his fourth consecutive G1 Climax final, but would lose to Kazuchika Okada in the final after suffering an arm injury causing a referee stoppage, awarding the victory to the legendary Okada. On February 1st of 2023, Ibushi's contract with New Japan expired, rendering him a free agent. By July of that year, Ibushi was announced as the mystery partner of the Elite in their Blood and Guts match against the Blackpool Combat Club, thus reuniting with Omega and reforming the Golden Lovers, now under the Golden Elite name, since Hangman Page and the Young Bucks were also part of the match. The team then won the match the following week on Dynamite, and on November 15th, 2023, Ibushi signed a contract with AEW and is still under contract to them to this day. However, we'll get into that in just a little bit, because there's more to this story with New Japan than meets the eye. Ibushi's exit from NJPW was not one of a fairy tale, but more of a living nightmare. It's safe to say Kota Ibushi's relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling management and higher-ups had been heavily tainted following his injury suffered in his match with Okada in the 2021 G1 Climax final. The injury would cost Ibushi the match, a third consecutive G1 trophy, as well as a spot in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. Ibushi injured himself attempting to hit a Phoenix Splash, landing awkwardly on his shoulder, which still seems to partly affect him to this day. One of the reasons his recovery took longer than expected and has been more difficult is due to Ibushi reportedly refusing to have surgery on the area, even after he was advised to do so by New Japan management. Pro wrestlers refusing surgery certainly isn't anything new, with many believing a serious surgery could not only put them on the shelf for a prolonged period of time, affecting their push, but also affect their performance in the ring. Ibushi thought that with enough rest he would recover from his shoulder injury with limited tweaks to his in-ring style, which has caused him many injuries throughout his career. The best way I could describe Ibushi's fused in-ring work of Japanese strong style, striking and high flying would be, holy shit, how is he not dead yet? It almost became a trademark at one point for Ibushi to take a vicious head bump in almost every match, which of course gains some criticism from fans and wrestling journalists alike. But in truth, Ibushi wasn't unsafe or unprofessional, just trying to stand out in an era of Japanese wrestling where the boundaries were constantly being pushed every single week. And whilst Ibushi was struggling to return from his injury, his nightmare got a whole lot worse, with New Japan trying to get Ibushi back into the ring early, seemingly due to their lack of top stars at the time. Veterans such as Hiroshi Tanahashi and Tetsuya Naito were getting older, and many of their new top Western stars such as Kenny Omega and Jay White and others had either already or were about to eye up moves to WWE and AEW. And it wouldn't be long until arguably New Japan's greatest star of all time, Kazuchika Okada, would follow suit and sign full-time for All Elite Wrestling. Kota Ibushi had faded into abject obscurity after the 2021 G1 final on October 21st, 2021. And by May of early 2022, Ibushi publicly aired his frustrations with New Japan management and cleared up to fans the reasoning behind his longer than expected absence. Ibushi tweeted publicly, which has been translated as best as possible by a Redditor, saying, quote, "After having spoken to each other, it's clear that exploitation is exploitation. I'm not a robot. Kikuchi asked me if I could try to return before Wrestle Kingdom if I was healed up. That just stinks of exploitation, and I had to put up with it." End quote. Ibushi also said, following another tweet, "This isn't a situation where I think properly before I speak out, so I apologise for that. If there are a lot of people, presumably higher-ups, who wanted to talk to me, then why didn't they approach me directly? It's not only Kikuchi. I can go on and on about a lot of the dark, exploitative side of the company. When it comes to the exploitative side of the company, you know what I'm talking about, don't you, Kikuchi? How one gets exploited depends on the person. This time, you are the one getting screwed over." In these tweets, the Kikuchi, who Ibushi keeps referring to, is that of former New Japan staff member Yuichi Kikuchi, who was seen as the right-hand man to head booker Gedo. Ibushi publicly accused Kikuchi of having threatened to end his New Japan contract over an unapproved outside appearance in March of 2022, a breach of his New Japan exclusivity contract. Things then escalated even further when Ibushi shared screenshots of arguments he had had with Kikuchi over the issue, whilst accusing NJPW officials of sexual harassment. Ibushi later gave an emotional update and said that the fallout with New Japan ultimately led his mother to attempt suicide, blaming Kikuchi and company president Takami Obari for pushing his family to the brink. The controversy led New Japan to hold a press conference announcing that Ibushi, Kikuchi, and Obahari would all be penalised with a 10% pay reduction for the following 3 months. Following the extremely public falling out with Kota Ibushi that summer, official Yuichi Kikuchi was quietly transferred from his role in New Japan to a new position with Pro Wrestling Noah, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Ibushi would then ride out the remainder of his contract, waiting almost another 10 months to be freed from his New Japan deal on January 31st, 2023. Ibushi would tweet out a final message to NJPW saying, quote, "I had many conflicts, but thank you New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have decided not to renew my contract, but to become a freelancer. Thank you for the long but condensed period of time. Thank you very much. From now on, I hope you will watch over my path. You never know what will happen." End quote. Ibushi's New Japan ending was certainly not what he'd hoped for. Considering when he signed his new contract several years prior, he was ready to give his all to the promotion, declaring his intention to end his career with New Japan, the company that had stuck by him and gave him so many opportunities over the years. However, for now, the dark cloud of his New Japan career had passed, and a new chapter of his career was about to begin. And after almost 2 years, Ibushi would return to a pro wrestling ring at GCW's collective weekend event, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. After leaving New Japan, the possibilities for Ibushi seemed endless. Ibushi had spoken about possibly starting his own promotion in Japan, and had confirmed he'd been offered big money from companies such as AEW, amongst others. However, Ibushi seemed to be focusing on himself, trying to rediscover exactly who he was. After over a year of uncertainty and misfortune, he was free to reinvent himself and present himself in any which way he could imagine. Game Changer Wrestling, or GCW, one of the top US indie promotions, were the first to announce Ibushi for one of their shows over WrestleMania weekend of 2023, for 2 GCW shows on consecutive days, March 30th and March 31st, for Josh Barnett's Bloodsport against Speedball Mike Bailey, and Joey Janela's Spring Break against the man himself, Joey Janela. Ibushi was treated to immense cheers on both nights, returning to his roots of independent wrestling in a period where his stock was still very high and had many full-time promotions eyeing his signature. Ibushi won both matches, and in fine form too. No particular ring rust in sight, as Ibushi's return to pro wrestling was an overwhelming success. But of course, this was Ibushi's way of dipping his toe back into the metaphorical pro wrestling ocean, and the swimming was about to begin. Wrestling fans worldwide began questioning, what is next for Kota Ibushi? Ibushi would go quiet for the next 3.5 months, building up hype and buzz surrounding his whereabouts, before debuting for AEW as a tag partner for the Elite in the Blood and Guts match on July 19th, 2023 edition of AEW Dynamite. The match featured some insane spots, including Ibushi hitting a standing moonsault onto Jon Moxley as he was laying on a bed of nails. You know, the usual. But it again helped Ibushi build some momentum for a full-time gig, with AEW now in pole position, considering this appearance as well as a strong relationship with the likes of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Ibushi would continue to wrestle on the independent wrestling circuit, working for Japanese promotion GLEAT, before working several AEW matches for AEW All In at Wembley Stadium in the UK in August, as well as a multi-man tag match in October on an episode of Dynamite. Then, on November 15th, 2023, Kota Ibushi would officially sign an AEW contract, making it the first contract he would sign to following his hostile departure from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, you'd think this is where things would look up for Ibushi, right? Fan excitement, Golden Lovers reunion, successful indie stint, signing with AEW. But remarkably, since signing his AEW contract on the November 15th edition of Dynamite, Ibushi hasn't been seen on AEW programming ever since. I called this video the curious case of Kota Ibushi because it really does feel like, as fans, we're all left puzzled as just to what the hell is going on with the Golden Star, Kota Ibushi. Ibushi has wrestled since his AEW signing for the likes of his adopted home, DDT, Pro Wrestling Noah, Marvelous, and GLEAT. However, they seem to have been stop-start opportunities for Ibushi. The reasoning for his AEW absence is largely unknown, with speculation being anything from visa issues, citizenships, backstage disagreements, to the fact that Ibushi may still be fighting or working through injuries. As I mentioned earlier, one of the promotions Ibushi worked for during his AEW absence was Pro Wrestling Noah, working their New Year's show on January 2nd, 2024, in a dream match with Japanese legend Naomichi Marufuji. Ibushi idolized Marufuji, and after injuring his ankle early on in the match, Ibushi chose to persevere, but it certainly came at a cost. Ibushi seemed slow, off the pace, and had to essentially be carried across the finish line by Marufuji, made worse by the fact that Ibushi won the match, putting an end to a dreadful encounter after 33.5 excruciating minutes. The match, to be honest, was a complete disaster for Ibushi, especially considering it was discovered after the match that Ibushi was already going into the match with an injured ankle, with the moonsault to the outside early into the match worsening the damage to his ankle. Pro Wrestling Noah tweeted out after the match saying, quote, "Kota Ibushi, who sustained an injury at Pro Wrestling Noah's Araki Arena event on January 2nd, has been diagnosed with a right tibiofibular ligament tear and a right ankle lateral ligament complex injury as a result of a more thorough examination than his initial diagnosis. Ibushi is scheduled to undergo another detailed examination of his left leg and to concentrate on treatment. We will inform you on his progress as soon as we know more." End quote. As I mentioned earlier, Ibushi would return to action in July of 2024, making sporadic appearances across the Japanese wrestling scene, most recently at Maya Yuki's 10th anniversary show in a mixed tag match on February 15th, 2025. But still to this day, little is known about why he hasn't been part of AEW programming, and he's hardly been referenced since his official debut in AEW in October of 2023. Ibushi did confirm on Twitter that he still calls AEW his home, in response to a fan on August 8, 2024, questioning if he was no longer part of AEW's full-time roster, as well as confirming his ambition to reunite with Kenny Omega to once again perform as the Golden Lovers tag team. Omega himself had only recently returned to in-ring action after a long bout of diverticulitis, which had kept him out of action from December 2023 to January of 2025. Funnily enough, at Omega's return match for an interpromotional show between AEW and New Japan named Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th, 2025 against Gabe Kidd, Omega would announce in his post-match press conference that his best friend, alluding to Kota Ibushi, was denied access to the building, being held at the famous Tokyo Dome. And in all honesty, there's no official word on the authenticity of Kenny's statement, but it certainly speaks volumes to the relationship between Ibushi and New Japan, even up to the present day, especially considering Ibushi is still signed to AEW contract, at least as far as we know. Therefore, any appearance on the show wouldn't have been breaching any kind of contract issues or legalities. Just all round bizarre. Ibushi continues to be shunned by almost everyone in the pro wrestling business, it seems, and the reasons, to this day, are still largely unknown. Overall, the Golden Star Kota Ibushi has had one hell of a career, and certainly left an important mark in the world of pro wrestling. However, the longer he's away from pro wrestling, the more his legacy seems to be fading. He seems to be someone that is becoming largely forgotten, and even in some cases, erased from the legacy of the business. Ibushi has had so many important and groundbreaking moments throughout his career, particularly in New Japan, where his infamy seems to have been hidden away, as though he was no longer welcome in the hearts of the organization that built him, and that he, in some way, helped lay the foundations for the success of New Japan in modern times. Hopefully we will see him return to full in-ring competition sooner rather than later, provided he is in good physical and mental health, of course. But until then, the case of Kota Ibushi will remain a curious one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell for post notifications. Until next time, Empire out.